Do you know, aside from the obvious satirical take on Buck Rogers, the connection between Duck Dodgers and Buck Rogers in the 25th century?
Hey, gang. Damper 3, welcome back. We've missed you guys. We've been on a bit of a hiatus with illness and spring breaks and eclipses and earthquakes and natural events and what have
Dogs and cats living together.
Total pandemonium. So we were trying to continue with our sci-fi, best sci-fi series. Eric had came up with the idea to cover Buck Rogers. And then we found out that there was nowhere you could watch it without paying for it. And I didn't remember it. I remembered that it existed as soon as he said it. And I remember some of the things about it. I even mentioned the sidekick robot on one of the other podcasts. But no, this it just didn't do anything for me. So I thought maybe we could talk about Ultraman. And Eric felt the exact same way.
So, and matter of fact, as I remember the conversation, Jeff, you made the comment along the lines of, I remember more about Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century than I do about Buck Rogers, right? So I thought I would ask you this real quick before we dig into this, because for one, I think that's insulting, because I think Buck Rogers has plenty of memorable moments in there. But two, do you know, aside from the obvious satirical take on Buck Rogers, the connection between Duck Dodgers and Buck Rogers in the 25th century?
Oh, that was that voice actor, wasn't it?
Yeah. What voice actor?
I just threw that out there.
On.
I made it entirely up. No, I got nothing.
Mel Blanc is the guy who voiced Tweaky and who also voiced Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, all of them. It's the same guy. So
I was going to say Mel Blanc, and then I thought, no, that's just too obvious. I could have sounded so clever. I could have sounded so yeah.
And that doesn't happen a whole lot. So,
never happened.
You missed your chance there. But yeah, Mel Blanc was the guy who did Twiggy, except for there are 3 episodes that he apparently got laryngitis or something going on. And so someone else had to step in, and everyone was like, what's up with Twiggy? That's not him. And then he came back, and then, everything was good. So, but yeah, Mel Blanc voiced Twiggy. And that makes Duck Dodgers even more amusing, since he actually was part of the universe. So canonically, Duck Dodgers and Buck Rogers are connected.
Great.
So, but circle back to that. So Jeff said, yeah, let's do Ultraman. And I thought, I don't have a whole lot of memories. Plus, I don't think I liked Ultraman that much. I have one specific memory that I'm going to search high and low for the video on, but we'll get to them. So Jeff, if it's okay with you, we're going to try to convince everybody here what's the better sci-fi series is, Ultraman or Buck Rogers. And if you haven't seen the other entries into this series, so far we've covered $6 Million Man and Battlestar Galactica. So please take a look at those. And then ultimately, we're going to wind up this series looking for the best sci-fi series from the Gen X-ish period. We'll take some stuff on either end of the Gen X period as well, because there's just so much overlap. So having said that, what do you remember about Ultraman to kind of introduce it to the to our subscribers?
Okay, so Ultraman, and I didn't catch on to this, but Ultraman was very eco-friendly. Oh. He was a solar-powered superhero. Oh. Now that I knew. He had about 3 minutes of Ultramaning before he didn't Ultraman anymore. So basically, he had about 3 minutes to take care of any fights that were going on.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he had that red beeping light on his chest that would get worse as he ran out of solar power. So he already has a step in today's world with the eco-friendly bit. Shin Hayata was a guy of the Science Patrol, was one of the guys on the Science Patrol, and Shin Hayata got hurt while Ultraman was working with him, and or he was fighting a monster, and Ultraman was an alien and basically gave him his life force, and he carried the beta capsule, and he would push the button and turn into Ultraman and then fight off kaiju for about 3 minutes every
with
week.
with martial arts.
Yeah, well, and lasers and
Well,
shields.
sure, sure. Now, the only the one fight that I remember that I both laughed and loved at, laughed at and loved as a kid, because there was something about Ultraman. I would watch it almost in a campy sort of appreciation, because even as a kid who grew up during the 70s and the early 80s, I would
It was
watch these.
hokey.
It was like, what? So there was a kaiju with a drill bit nose.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the thing flying at him, and I don't remember if he karate chopped it or ripped it, but he rips it off somehow as it flies by him, and I couldn't decide if that was cool or stupid. And but that's like that memory. That's like a single memory of Ultraman.
Say one of my core memories. They always had those laser guns. They had this one two-handled Tommy gun laser gun, and there was a robot. There was a monster that was magnetic, and it would turn on its magnet, and it would suck up all the metal, including this laser gun. And one of the guys literally, I mean, you could see him. He's got it like this. He's got his gun. He goes, "Ah, my gun!" He literally just threw it as hard as he could in front of him. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Well, what I was saying is that was a really good. I don't remember any of that intro, any of that setup. So the fact that you had all that committed to memory, that's pretty good. Okay, cool. I don't remember I don't remember a whole lot about that. But so did they have recurring villains on Ultraman?
Dude, it was kaiju, okay? They fought monsters.
Sure. Did Ultraman ever meet up with Godzilla? I want to say there was some kind of overlap.
I thought that too when I was young and didn't notice things like color, and because I'm colorblind, so it really didn't matter. But the overlap that I think you might be thinking of is actually Jet Jaguar. And it was a robot that grew, and I mean, a 15-story silver and red guy is a 15-story silver and red guy. Even and he went from being a 6-foot silver and red guy to being a 15-story red guy, which is not unlike Ultraman.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. You're probably right. The kaiju are still super relevant from a pop culture perspective. So they're stuck in there. I would be willing. I wonder rather how many people today, if you were just to go on the street, if you would say, "Hey, do you know Ultraman? Who is Ultraman or what have you?" They, of course, folks are going to remember Godzilla. They're going to remember Mothra and all those kind of things. But Ultraman, I wonder how much of a place he has in pop culture today. I honestly don't know. I mean, is he a big figure in the fan circles these days? I bet you he's not as big as, say, Buck Rogers.
You know what? I have never in my life seen a Buck Rogers action figure, but I have. And I sent you a picture of it recently, like within the past 6 months. At Walmart, saw an Ultraman action figure.
Okay, that's a good retort. You're absolutely right. I can't think of now. I'm gonna come back to that in a second, because there is one toy I definitely remember that I'm going to bring up here in a second when I talk about season 2. But let's switch gears a little bit. Let me bring Buck Rogers into this thing. Now, Buck Rogers, only 2 seasons, right? But that's one more than Battlestar Galactica. Buck Rogers was written and produced by Glenn Larson, who is responsible for Battlestar Galactica. The first season was 24 episodes. It was actually introed as a movie. They released it as a movie first, and then they broke it up into 2 seasons. I think kind of like they did with Battlestar Galactica. This is not exactly an argument in favor of Buck Rogers as a superior sci-fi, but clearly Buck Rogers' libido plays a central role in the storyline here.
There is there is an Instagram account devoted to the babes of Buck Rogers, which should give you some idea as to what the show Buck Rogers was about.
There were 24 episodes in the first season, and of those 24 episodes, 9 of them, Buck's virility plays a central role in the storyline. Here's some of the titles of them: Planet of the Slave Girls, Part 1, Planet of the Slave Girls, Part 2, Vegas in Space, Unchained Woman, Planet of the Amazon Women, which has to be inspiration for Futurama.
Last men visit Amazonia?
What'd they die of?
Crushed pelvises.
Yes!
The Escape from Wedded Bliss, because of course one of the alien princesses is so determined to marry the perfect Buck Rogers that she's going to come down and force the issue. A Dream of Jennifer, where Buck is thinking of his girlfriend back 500 years ago, and he meets somebody who very much resembles. So Buck Rogers' sex drive seems to be a very central theme to a lot of these stories. So that's not necessarily in favor of the sci-fi world. Now, the sci-fi world I thought was pretty cool.
I'm surprised they didn't have a crossover between Buck Rogers and Life Force. But
ding, ding, ding. There's a Life Force reference.
All right, let's go.
So Buck Rogers, frozen for 500 years, wakens in a post-apocalyptic Earth, and they rebuilt centers of humanity or what have you. But outside of cities, fortresses essentially are wasteland. And it's kind of creepy. There's one part I'm not kidding. It really sounds like Twiki is at risk of being used as a sex toy by the surviving humanity outside there. It's just kind of weird, but generally speaking,
hey Buck.
It's a really cool sci-fi world. It's a good setup. It is a little annoying that in the initial space fights you see in the first couple of episodes, Buck Rogers is the only one who figures out, hey, if we don't fly level and flat like the computer tells us, and we actually dodge around, we could beat people in dogfights. So
you know what? I remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was kind of annoying. Buck is the hero, and he goes around kicking butt and doing his thing. Season 2, it gets weird. I mean, in a more of a Buck Rogers kind of way.
Saying that
because what happens is the season gets mixed up. The storyline gets changed dramatically, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm sure there's a history out there. It seemed like Glenn Larson decided that he wanted to make Buck Rogers into Battlestar Galactica, but in reverse, because instead of being on Earth, Buck and Deering are on a spaceship that's out traveling the cosmos looking for lost tribes of humanity. I'm not sure exactly why. And but it only lasts 11 seasons. One is because there was an actor strike.
Episodes?
What's that?
Episodes?
11 episodes.
Okay.
It was abbreviated in part because it got a late start because of this actor strike, and it was abruptly canceled. But season 2 is where you meet Hawk. Do you remember Hawk at all?
I'm going to say it's ringing a bell, but not enough.
Hawk, he looks completely corny today, but back then he was awesome. He was a Birdman alien who was very...
Yes, I remember Hawk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hawk was, he doesn't like Buck at first, but I guess they become pals later on. I think he's like a late survivor of a race. I don't know what took him out. I don't know if it's humans or some war or what. I don't recall. But Hawk has a spaceship, which as what aliens will do, that looks bird-like and it has even talons for landing gear, kind of thing. And I want to say it grabbed Buck's spaceship at one point when they were fighting. I can't quite remember, but Hawk was an interesting addition. What's that?
was overcome with passion.
Right. Look into those dreamy Buck Rogers eyes. There are a couple iconic moments that I remember distinctly that, again, from comparing it to Ultraman, I just don't remember that much except for the drill bit nose guy. Do you remember that Buck Rogers had a space vampire?
I thought we already talked about that. Life Force, the crossover.
Non-sexy
No,
space vampire.
no, that sounds dumb. Who would do a thing like that?
Now, what they did with this, there's a space vampire, and I just thought this was the coolest thing ever back then because, vampire, sci-fi, put them together. Wow, you got this. But they had this vampire episode where the vampire was designed to look a lot like Nosferatu, and the unibrow maybe not have been so scary, but they do a pretty good job with it. And he gets Colonel Deering, he winds up draining Colonel Deering, but after
yeah,
instead of a cross, they had this little talisman thing that freaks him out.
Some of us called her Wilma.
Well, some of us are more respectful. So,
okay. I tell you what. I had said that I did not have any memory of Buck, but I do have one episode that does come to mind, and it has for years. And I'm almost certain this is the name. And if anybody really knows this for a fact, please put it in the comments. There was an invisible villain who had a light sword. And his name, I believe, was Ezerhauden. And
wow.
Yeah, and Buck, and who knows where he comes up with his brilliant ideas, but he thought instead of trying to shoot at the laser, if he shot it where the body would be of somebody holding a laser sword or a light sword, then maybe he could hit them, and it worked.
Wow. Well, he's pretty sharp.
He is. Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of thinking that gets you, that helps a man survive 500 years.
Gets you another 500 years.
But I tell you, so here's the things that Buck Rogers has over Ultraman right now. One is Wilma Deering. There's Buck Rogers has 1.
Got that one.
0 on the Ultraman side.
All right.
2, I bet you no one wants to date Ultraman. So we have the sex appeal. So 1 to 0. 3, how many Jack Palances guest starred in Ultraman? I'd be willing to bet 0. Jack Palance, and not only just Jack Palance in one of the villains in Buck Rogers, but he cranks up the Jack Palance to 11 in this. I mean,
Whoa.
He is pure Jack Palance in there. There's a scene where he's just like, where he says like, "You are doomed, Buck Rogers," and just like pure Jack Palance just oozing through the thing, and you just gotta appreciate that. So, number of vampires in Ultraman is probably 0. And let's see what else. I think those are the big. Oh, and Mel Blanc. So we'll say Mel Blanc, even though we don't like Twiggy that much.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you did your little, numerical countdown thing. We have a beta capsule in Ultraman, which is how he turned into Ultraman. No beta capsules in Buck Rogers. We had a monster that was created by kids performing graffiti on a big sewer pipe, and it inflated because of some disturbance in the Van Allen belt, maybe, I don't know. We had kaiju, and no kaiju in Buck Rogers, and we had spaceships that had sparks that would shoot out the back and fall down, and smoke that would float up.
I remember that.
And they were VTOL, so they were vertical takeoff and landing. They were amazing.
That's pretty impressive.
They had the cool little Eiffel Tower looking pin with the antenna they could pull up and talk to each other. I actually have one of those pins at home.
Oh wow.
And the antenna comes up and down. So none of those in Buck Rogers. Yeah, you had Wilma. Okay. You won.
That might be the tiebreaker. I don't know how compelling of an argument that we made here, guys, but which one do you prefer? And it's all in good fun. You're not really this isn't legally binding. You're not committed to anything. Buck Rogers, Ultraman, which is the superior sci-fi show? Which ones? I mean, even if you enjoy both, which one would you prefer? Leave us comments with any of your favorite scenes. There's scenes or storylines or anything like that. With Buck Rogers, did you prefer season 1 or season 2? Season 1's where all my memories are, except for Hawk. I don't remember a whole heck of a lot out of season 2. So yeah, let us know, guys, which you think. Buck Rogers versus Ultraman. And keep an eye out for our next. We got a couple other series that we're going to be talking about in our continuing search for the best sci-fi TV series around the Gen X period. Thanks again for joining, everyone. Great conversation, and thanks for your time. Have a great day.
Thanks, gang. We'll see you.